Human baby on the boat. Saw a drowning mother bear. What he did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The morning sun painted Emerald Lake with strokes of gold. Noah Matthews cradled his 8-month-old son, Liam, while his wife Emma prepared their small wooden boat for their weekly fishing trip. Liam giggled, his chubby fingers clutching a bright blue rattle, his favorite toy that never left his tiny grasp. "Perfect day for fishing, isn't it, buddy?" Noah whispered to Liam, whose bright blue eyes widened with excitement. Emma smiled at them both as she placed their picnic basket in the boat. "The weather forecast says clear skies all day. We might even spot some wildlife," Emma said, adjusting her sun hat. She had been coming to Emerald Lake since childhood, but bringing Liam here for the first time filled her with a special kind of joy. The Matthews family had the lake mostly to themselves that morning. A light mist hovered over the water's surface, slowly dissolving as the sun climbed higher. Noah carefully placed Liam in his specially designed infant seat at the center of the boat, securing the safety straps around his pudgy body. Liam babbled happily, waving his rattle as if conducting the morning symphony of birdsong surrounding them. As Noah rowed away from shore, Emma pointed toward the tree line. "Look, Noah! Bears!" she whispered excitedly. At the edge of the forest, a large brown bear and her small cub emerged from between the pines. The mother bear was massive, her powerful shoulders rippling as she led her cub toward the shoreline. The cub bounced playfully behind her, occasionally stopping to investigate interesting scents in the tall grass. "Let's keep our distance," Noah said, adjusting their course slightly. "They're probably just looking for fish." Emma nodded, snapping a few photos with her camera. "Liam, look, sweetie," she said softly, turning the baby to see the bears. Liam stared with fascination, suddenly quiet, as if understanding the significance of these magnificent creatures. The Matthews settled in a peaceful spot about 100 yards from shore. Noah cast his fishing line while Emma prepared Liam's bottle. The gentle rocking of the boat seemed to soothe Liam, whose eyes kept drifting toward the bears on the distant shoreline. What the Matthews didn't know was that recent heavy rains had altered the lake's underwater terrain. New currents flowed beneath the calm surface, creating invisible dangers in places that had been safe for generations. The mother bear, who had been fishing in these waters for years, had no way of knowing that her usual fishing spot now concealed a treacherous undertow. As the family enjoyed their peaceful morning, the mother bear waded deeper into the water, pursuing the flash of fish beneath the surface. Her cub waited obediently on the shore, occasionally letting out small, worried grunts as its mother ventured further from land. Noah was just explaining to Emma how he hoped Liam would grow up appreciating nature when a sound cut through the morning stillness. A desperate, panicked roar that sent birds scattering from nearby trees. The mother bear was struggling, her massive body suddenly thrashing in the water. She had stepped into an underwater drop-off, and the current was pulling her away from shore. Her powerful legs kicked frantically as she fought to keep her head above water. "Oh my God," Emma gasped, clutching Liam closer to her chest. "She's drowning." The cub began pacing anxiously on the shoreline, letting out distressed cries that echoed across the lake. Its tiny paws touched the water's edge, but instinct kept it from following its mother into the deep. Liam's eyes widened at the commotion. He turned in his seat, straining against the safety straps, his gaze fixed on the struggling bear. The rattle in his hand shook as his entire body tensed, as if somehow sensing the unfolding tragedy. Noah stood up carefully, rocking the boat. "We should go," he said urgently. If she makes it back to shore, she'll be agitated, dangerous. But Emma couldn't tear her eyes away from the struggling animal. But the cub, Noah, if she drowns. The mother bear's struggles grew more desperate, her roars turning to guttural gasps as she fought against exhaustion. The cub's cries became more frantic, piercing the morning air with heartbreaking urgency. And then something strange happened. Liam, who had been watching the scene with unusual intensity for a baby his age, suddenly began to cry. Not his usual hungry or tired cry, but something different. Something that made both Noah and Emma turn to look at their son with surprise. What happened next would change their lives forever. Liam's cry grew louder, more insistent. It wasn't his normal cry. This was something primal, almost as if he was responding directly to the bear cub's distress. His tiny body strained against the safety straps, his pudgy arms extending toward the struggling mother bear. "Noah, he's upset. I've never seen him like this," Emma said, trying to soothe Liam by rubbing his back. But Liam wouldn't be consoled. His eyes remained fixed on the drowning bear, tears streaming down his chubby cheeks. Noah looked torn. As a wildlife conservation officer, he had been trained never to interfere with nature. "We can't get involved, Emma. It's too dangerous." But the mother bear's struggles were weakening. Her massive head dipped below the surface for longer periods, coming up with desperate gasps that seemed to grow more feeble by the second. The cub's cries had become hoarse, desperate. "We can't just watch her die," Emma pleaded. "Not in front of her baby, not in front of our baby." Noah hesitated, his professional training battling with his compassion. The boat rocked gently as he weighed their options. What nobody expected was what Liam did next. With a sudden burst of movement that startled both his parents, Liam twisted in his safety seat and threw his beloved blue rattle with surprising force. The toy arced through the air, catching the sunlight before landing with a splash just a few feet from the drowning bear. "Liam!" Emma gasped, shocked by her baby's sudden action. The splash from the rattle caught the mother bear's attention. Her tired eyes focused on the floating blue object, and with renewed determination, she paddled toward it. The rattle's buoyancy kept it bobbing on the surface, creating a focal point that seemed to give the bear something to aim for. "I don't believe it," Noah whispered, watching as the bear used the momentary distraction to find her rhythm in the water again. But the current was still too strong. Despite her renewed efforts, the mother bear was visibly exhausting herself. She needed more help than a floating rattle could provide. Liam continued crying, his little arms reaching out as if trying to bridge the impossible distance between himself and the struggling animal. There was something uncanny about his focus, his determination, as if he understood exactly what was happening. "Noah," Emma said firmly, "we have to help. Liam knows it. Somehow he knows." Noah looked at his son, then at the drowning bear, and made his decision. "I'll row closer, but we have to be extremely careful. If she panics and capsizes us—" "She won't," Emma said with strange certainty, still trying to comfort Liam. "Look at her eyes. She knows we're not a threat right now." Noah cautiously maneuvered the boat closer to the struggling bear, careful to keep a safe distance. The bear's eyes, full of exhaustion and fear, seemed to track their approach. "I have an idea," Noah said suddenly. He reached for their fishing gear and pulled out a life preserver they kept for emergencies. Attached to it was a length of sturdy rope. "If I can get this close enough to her—" Emma's eyes widened. "Noah, that's incredibly dangerous." "We can't get too close, but maybe we can give her something to grab onto," Noah explained as he prepared to throw the life preserver. The bear was barely staying afloat now, her movements sluggish. The cub on shore paced frantically, occasionally testing the water with one paw before retreating in fear. Noah stood carefully, balancing in the small boat, and threw the life preserver with all his strength. It landed just beyond the bear, the bright orange float bobbing tantalizingly close to her. "Come on," Emma whispered, clutching Liam. "Grab it." But the bear didn't understand. In her panic and exhaustion, she merely batted at the strange object, pushing it further away rather than using it for support. Liam's cries suddenly stopped. The abrupt silence was almost as startling as his previous wailing. His bright eyes locked onto the life preserver, then back to the bear, then to the shore where the cub waited. It was as if he was calculating, thinking. Impossible for an 8-month-old, and yet. Then Liam did something that neither Noah nor Emma could explain later when recounting the story. He raised one tiny hand and pointed, not at the mother bear, but at the shore where the cub stood. Noah followed his son's gesture, confused. "What is it, buddy? What are you trying to tell us?" And then he saw it. A fallen tree, half submerged near the shoreline, creating a natural bridge from deeper water to the shallows. If the bear could make it to that log, she might be able to pull herself to safety. "Emma, look," Noah pointed. "We need to guide her toward that fallen tree." But the bear was tiring rapidly, drifting further from both the life preserver and the potential safety of the tree bridge. Time was running out. That's when they heard the sound of another boat approaching. A deep, powerful motor cut through the morning stillness as a larger fishing boat rounded the bend in the lake. At its helm stood Carter Reynolds, the local park ranger and Noah's colleague. "Carter!" Noah called out, waving frantically. "We need help!" Carter's boat slowed as he took in the scene. The Matthews family in their small rowboat, the drowning bear, the distressed cub on shore. His expression shifted from confusion to understanding in an instant. As a ranger with 20 years of experience handling wildlife emergencies, Carter's presence changed everything. "Stay back," he called to Noah and Emma. "I've got tranquilizer equipment." But Emma shook her head vehemently. "No time!" "She's drowning." Carter assessed the situation quickly and maneuvered his larger boat between the Matthews and the bear, creating a barrier of safety. From a compartment beneath his seat, he pulled out a specialized animal rescue pole with a loop at the end. Equipment he carried for emergencies involving injured wildlife. "I'm going to try to guide her to that fallen tree," Carter called out. "Noah, back your boat away. Get your family to safety." Noah began rowing backwards, but Liam suddenly became hysterical, thrashing in his safety seat and reaching out toward the bear with such ferocity that Emma struggled to hold him. "Noah, wait," Emma said. "Liam is—" "I know this sounds crazy, but I think he still wants to help." Carter had extended the rescue pole toward the bear, who was now barely keeping her nose above water. Her enormous paws churned weakly, her strength nearly gone. What nobody expected was the sudden change in the weather. Dark clouds rolled in with unnatural speed, casting shadows over the formerly sunny lake. A strong wind kicked up, creating ripples across the previously calm surface. "Storm coming fast," Carter called out. "Must be that system they were tracking up north. It wasn't supposed to hit until tonight." The sudden shift in weather complicated everything. The waves grew choppier, making it harder for Carter to stabilize his boat and for the exhausted bear to keep her head above water. Lightning flashed in the distance, followed by a rumble of thunder that seemed to vibrate through the water itself. The cub on shore backed away from the water's edge, whimpering in fear. Liam, however, seemed utterly unafraid. His cries had stopped, replaced by an intense concentration that seemed impossibly mature. His eyes tracked between Carter's rescue pole, the drowning bear, and the fallen tree by the shore, as if he was following every detail of the unfolding drama. The wind whipped Emma's hair across her face as she held Liam secure. "Noah, I think we should get to shore." Noah nodded, beginning to row toward the shoreline opposite from where the bear cub waited. But then Liam did something else unexpected. He pointed emphatically at Carter's boat, then made a grabbing motion with his tiny hand. Emma stared at her son in amazement. "Noah, I think he wants us to take Carter's rope." "What? That's impossible, Emma. He's a baby." But Liam continued the gesture, more insistently now, his eyes locked on Carter's rescue equipment. Carter was struggling. The wind was pushing his boat at an awkward angle, making it difficult for him to maneuver the rescue pole close enough to the bear. The loop at the end kept missing its target, as the bear's movements became more erratic and feeble. "I can't stabilize," Carter called out over the rising wind. Noah made a split-second decision. "Emma, hold on to Liam tight." He positioned their smaller, lighter boat downwind from Carter's, creating a more stable position from which to attempt a rescue. "Carter, pass me the backup line," Noah called. Carter, understanding immediately, tossed a coiled rope toward Noah's boat. Noah caught it deftly, quickly unwinding it and fashioning a larger loop than the one on Carter's pole. "I'll try from this angle," Noah called back. The mother bear was barely conscious now, her massive body mostly submerged with only her snout and part of her head visible above the increasingly choppy water. Noah stood carefully, balancing in the rocking boat, and cast the loop toward the drowning bear. It landed perfectly, settling around her neck and one shoulder. With careful, gentle pressure, Noah began to pull. "Easy," Carter cautioned. "If she panics now." But the bear seemed to understand she was being helped. Or perhaps she was simply too exhausted to fight. She allowed the rope to guide her, her paws still moving weakly to assist her progress through the water. Lightning flashed again, closer this time, illuminating the scene in stark white light. A man in a small boat with his wife and baby, pulling a rope attached to a drowning bear, while a forest ranger provided backup and a frightened cub watched from shore. Then came the most remarkable moment of all. As Noah guided the bear closer to their boat, Liam leaned forward in his safety seat and extended his tiny hand toward the massive creature. Emma gasped, instinctively pulling him back. "Liam, no!" But there was something in Liam's expression, a calmness, a certainty, that made both Noah and Emma pause. The baby wasn't reaching out in childish curiosity. There was purpose in his gesture. The bear's eyes, glazed with exhaustion, suddenly focused on the small human child reaching toward her. Something passed between them, an understanding, a connection that transcended species. The bear's struggles calmed, and she allowed herself to be guided more easily. "Noah," Emma whispered, "she's responding to him." With newfound cooperation from the bear, Noah was able to guide her toward the fallen tree that Liam had pointed out earlier. Carter repositioned his boat to help, and together they maneuvered the exhausted animal to the natural bridge. As soon as the bear felt solid wood beneath her paws, instinct took over. With the last of her strength, she pulled herself onto the fallen trunk, her massive body trembling with exhaustion. For several long moments she lay there, breathing heavily, unable to move further. The cub, seeing its mother safe, bounded to the edge of the log, crying out in what sounded remarkably like relief. Rain began to fall as the storm moved directly overhead, fat drops splashing onto the lake's surface and pattering against the boats. But nobody moved. They all watched, transfixed, as the mother bear slowly, painfully, hauled herself completely onto the log and then to the shore, collapsing on solid ground. The cub rushed to its mother, nuzzling her wet fur and whimpering softly, The mother bear managed to lift her head just enough to lick her baby's face, confirming she was alive. "We did it," Emma breathed, clutching Liam tightly. "We actually did it." Carter maneuvered his boat closer to the Matthews. "We need to get to shore before this storm gets worse," he called over the increasing rainfall. "There's a shelter at the ranger station on the north end." Noah nodded, still watching the bears with wonder. "We'll follow you." As they prepared to leave, Liam made a soft sound. Not a cry this time, but a kind of cooing that drew everyone's attention. He was looking at the bears, his expression peaceful now, almost satisfied. Emma looked down at her son with a new awareness, a mixture of awe and concern in her eyes. "Noah," she said quietly, "what just happened?" "How did Liam—" Noah shook his head, unable to explain. "I don't know, Em. I really don't know." What none of them realized was that this strange incident, a human baby seemingly communicating with and helping save a drowning bear, was just the beginning. The storm that had appeared so suddenly wasn't just a normal weather system, and Liam's connection to the bear wasn't just a coincidence. As they rowed toward the ranger station, following Carter's larger boat through the rain, none of them noticed the peculiar glow emanating from beneath the lake's surface, or the strange patterns forming in the clouds overhead. None of them knew that in saving one mother bear, they had set in motion events that would reveal secrets about Emerald Lake and about Liam that had been hidden for generations. The rain intensified as they approached the northern shore. What had begun as a gentle summer shower quickly transformed into a torrential downpour. Lightning split the sky in jagged bursts, followed by thunder that shook the small boat beneath them. Emma hunched protectively over Liam, using her raincoat to shield him from the worst of the deluge. "Almost there," Carter called from his boat ahead of them. Through the curtain of rain, Noah could make out the silhouette of the ranger station, a sturdy log structure set back from the shore, partially hidden by towering pine trees. As they neared the shore, Noah noticed something unusual about the water around their boat. Despite the thrashing rain and wind, strange circular patterns formed on the surface, like ripples moving in the wrong direction. Inward rather than outward. The water beneath their boat seemed to glow with a faint bluish luminescence that didn't match any natural phenomenon he'd encountered in his years as a conservation officer. "Noah, look!" Emma pointed at Liam, whose attention was fixed on the glowing water. The baby's eyes reflected the unusual blue light, and his tiny hands reached toward it with curious fascination. Before Noah could respond, a massive wave, appearing from nowhere on the previously calm lake, lifted their boat several feet into the air. Emma screamed, clutching Liam tightly as they crashed back down onto the surface. Water sloshed over the sides, nearly capsizing them. "Hold on!" Carter had maneuvered his boat back toward them and extended a hand to stabilize their vessel. What the hell was that? There shouldn't be waves like that on this lake. They made it to shore, just as another mysterious wave surged behind them, pushing their boats roughly onto the pebbly beach. Noah leapt out, helping Emma with Liam while Carter secured both vessels. The rain continued to pound down, soaking them all to the skin despite their hurried movements. "Inside, quickly," Carter urged, leading them up a well-worn path to the ranger station. He fumbled with his keys, his hands shaking slightly. Whether from cold or from the strange events of the morning, Noah couldn't tell. The door swung open to reveal a warm, rustic interior. A central room contained a stone fireplace, several wooden chairs, and walls lined with maps, wildlife information displays, and emergency equipment. Carter immediately moved to the fireplace, expertly arranging kindling and logs. "There are towels in that cabinet," He gestured to Emma, who was gently wiping rainwater from Liam's face. The baby, surprisingly, wasn't crying despite the chaotic journey to shore. Instead, his eyes roamed the ranger station with unusual alertness for an infant his age. Noah retrieved the towels, wrapping one around Emma's shoulders before drying himself off. "Carter, what the hell is happening with this weather? And those waves?" Carter shook his head, striking a match to light the fire. "I've never seen anything like it in 20 years on this lake. That storm came out of nowhere. It wasn't even on the radar this morning." As the fire crackled to life, casting dancing shadows across the room, Emma settled into a chair with Liam on her lap. "And what about the bear? Will she be okay?" She looked completely exhausted. "Bears are resilient," Carter replied, though uncertainty lingered in his voice. "Once she rests, she should recover. I'll check on her and the cub when the storm passes." The ranger station phone rang suddenly, its shrill tone causing them all to jump. Carter crossed the room and answered it, his expression growing increasingly concerned as he listened. "Understood. We'll stay put." He hung up, turning to face Noah and Emma. That was headquarters. They're reporting unusual weather activity all around the lake. Several hikers are stranded, and there's flooding on the eastern shore. They've issued a shelter-in-place order until further notice. Emma hugged Liam closer. "So, we're stuck here." "For now," Carter confirmed, moving to a cabinet and extracting emergency supplies: bottled water, packaged food, blankets. "We've got everything we need to wait it out." Noah walked to the window, peering out at the storm. The rain had taken on an unusual quality. The droplets seemed almost to pause in midair before striking the ground, creating an eerie, suspended effect. Lightning flashed again, and in its brief illumination, Noah noticed a silhouette moving at the edge of the forest. "Carter," he called urgently. "There's something out there." Carter joined him at the window, squinting into the storm. The figure moved again, large, lumbering, unmistakable. "It's the bear," Carter whispered in disbelief. "She's followed us." The mother bear stood at the forest's edge, her massive body drenched and muddy, but very much alive. Beside her, partially hidden behind her leg, was her cub. They both stared toward the ranger station, unmoving despite the raging storm. "That's impossible," Emma said, joining them at the window with Liam in her arms. She was completely exhausted. How could she have followed us this far? The moment Emma and Liam appeared at the window, the bear seemed to react. She raised her head higher, her eyes fixed on them, or more precisely on Liam. The baby, seeing the bear, let out a delighted squeal and pressed his tiny palm against the window glass. What happened next defied explanation. A beam of soft blue light, the same color as the strange luminescence they'd seen in the lake, appeared to connect Liam's hand through the window to the bear's position. It lasted only seconds before disappearing, but all three adults saw it clearly. "What the—" Carter backed away from the window, his ranger training momentarily forgotten in the face of something he couldn't explain. Noah stood frozen, staring at his son. "Emma, did you see that?" Emma nodded slowly, her face pale. "It came from Liam. The light came from our baby." Outside, the mother bear turned and lumbered back into the forest, her cub following closely. As they disappeared among the trees, the storm's intensity suddenly diminished, as if their departure had somehow calmed the weather itself. Carter ran a trembling hand through his graying hair. "In 30 years in these woods, I've never—" He trailed off, unable to articulate what they'd just witnessed. A heavy silence fell over the cabin, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the gentler patter of rain against the windows. Finally, Noah spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Emma, has Liam ever done anything like this before?" Emma cradled their son, studying his face as if seeing it for the first time. Liam gazed back at her with those bright blue eyes, innocent yet somehow knowing. "No, at least I don't think so. But Noah, remember that day at the zoo, when all the animals seemed to gather near him?" Noah nodded slowly. Just a month ago, they'd taken Liam to the children's zoo, and several animals, a giraffe, 2 peacocks, and an elderly elephant, had approached the stroller, behaving with unusual gentleness around the baby. At the time, they'd laughed it off as a coincidence. Carter moved to a dusty bookshelf in the corner of the room and pulled out a thick, leather-bound volume. "My grandfather was the first ranger at Emerald Lake," he explained, setting the book on a wooden table. "He kept journals about everything he witnessed here, including some things the forestry department officially dismissed as superstition." He opened the journal carefully, its yellowed pages covered in faded handwriting and sketches. There were stories among the indigenous people who first lived here. Stories about the lake having special properties, about connections between humans and animals that defied normal understanding. Noah approached the table, scanning the open pages. "You think what happened with Liam and the bear is connected to these stories?" Carter shrugged. "I don't know, but my grandfather documented several incidents over the years, unexplained behaviors from wildlife, unusual weather patterns, strange lights in and around the lake." He turned several pages, revealing detailed drawings of the lake with peculiar circular patterns remarkably similar to what they'd observed on the water's surface during their approach to shore. Emma joined them, Liam still in her arms. "Are you suggesting there's something supernatural about this place?" "I wouldn't have used that word this morning," Carter admitted. "But after what I just saw—" He gestured toward the window where the blue light had appeared. A loud bang from outside interrupted their conversation, the sound of something heavy striking the ranger station's porch. Noah reached for the rifle mounted on the wall, but Carter shook his head, motioning for them to stay back as he approached the door cautiously. When he opened it, they all gasped. There, on the wooden porch, lay Liam's blue rattle, the same toy he had thrown to distract the drowning bear. It was perfectly intact, despite having been lost in the lake hours earlier. Emma stared at the toy in disbelief. "That's impossible. It was in the middle of the lake." Carter picked up the rattle carefully, examining it as if it might provide answers. "Someone, or something, wanted to return this to your son." As if on cue, Liam reached for his recovered toy, smiling as Carter handed it to him. The moment the rattle touched the baby's hands, it began to glow with the same mysterious blue light they had seen before. Noah backed away, pulling Emma and Liam with him. "What's happening to our son?" Carter looked equally alarmed. "I think we need to learn more about these local legends, and fast." The ranger returned to the bookshelf, pulling down more journals and old maps. "According to my grandfather's notes, there's a woman who lives on the far side of the lake, Norah Whitefeather. Her family has been here longer than anyone, even before the lake got its English name. If anyone knows what's happening, it would be her." "You want us to seek out some hermit based on legends in your grandfather's diary?" Noah questioned incredulously. Carter fixed him with a serious stare. "Noah, your 8-month-old son just created a beam of light that connected him to a bear he helped save from drowning. And then that same bear returned his toy across miles of forest during a storm that appeared from nowhere. Do you have a better explanation?" Noah fell silent, looking at Liam, who was now contentedly playing with his mysteriously returned rattle as if nothing unusual had happened. Emma spoke up, her voice stronger than Noah expected. "If there's even a chance this woman knows what's happening to our son, we need to find her." Carter nodded, spreading out an old hand-drawn map on the table. "Once the storm passes completely, I can take you in my boat. It's about an hour's journey to her cabin." As they discussed plans, none of them noticed the rattle in Liam's hands glowing brighter, or the way the baby's eyes occasionally flashed with that same blue light. None of them saw the patterns that had begun to form in the water droplets on the window glass. Circles within circles, mirroring ancient symbols drawn in Carter's grandfather's journal. And far across the lake, deep in the forest, where she had sought shelter with her cub, the mother bear raised her head suddenly, as if hearing a call inaudible to human ears. Her eyes, for just a moment, shone with the same mysterious blue light. The connection between baby and bear remained, strengthening with each passing minute, drawing them both toward a truth about Emerald Lake that had been hidden for centuries. A truth that would change all their lives forever and challenge everything they thought they knew about the natural world. The storm subsided by late afternoon, leaving behind a world transformed. Sunlight broke through dissipating clouds, illuminating raindrops that clung to every surface, making the forest around the ranger station sparkle like a jeweled tapestry. The air smelled fresh and clean, with an underlying sweetness that seemed to revitalize everyone who breathed it. Carter stood on the porch, surveying the lake. Water levels higher than normal, but nothing dangerous. We should be able to head out soon. Inside, Emma finished changing Liam into dry clothes from the emergency supplies Carter had provided. A tiny ranger's uniform that swallowed his small frame, making him look both adorable and strangely official. The blue rattle remained clutched in his hand, its mysterious glow now dormant. Noah joined Carter outside, his expression troubled. "I've been thinking about what happened. There has to be a scientific explanation." Carter raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "I don't know. Bioluminescence in the lake water affecting the visual perception of light? Some kind of electrical atmospheric phenomenon during the storm." Even as he offered these explanations, Noah knew they were insufficient. Nothing in his scientific training explained what they had witnessed. "Listen, Noah," Carter said quietly, ensuring Emma couldn't hear from inside. "There's something I didn't mention earlier. My grandfather didn't just record these incidents. He experienced one himself. His journal describes a similar encounter with a wolf pack in 1953, a lost child, animals behaving in inexplicable ways, strange lights." Noah leaned against the porch railing. "What happened?" "The details are vague, but he wrote that Norah Whitefeather's grandmother explained it to him as the choosing. According to her, certain children are selected by what she called the lake spirit to serve as intermediaries between the human and animal worlds. You can't seriously believe our son has been chosen by some mystical lake spirit?" Noah scoffed, though his skepticism was undermined by the memory of Liam's connection to the bear. Carter simply shrugged. "I'm just telling you what's in the journals, and suggesting that after what we've seen today it might be worth keeping an open mind." Their conversation was interrupted by the crackle of the ranger station's radio. Carter hurried inside to answer it. Noah remained on the porch, his eyes drawn to a movement at the forest's edge. A flash of brown fur that disappeared quickly behind the trees. The bears were still nearby, watching. Inside, Carter spoke urgently into the radio, his expression growing increasingly concerned. When he hung up, he turned to Noah and Emma with grim news. That was headquarters. The storm caused a landslide on the North Ridge. Several hikers are injured and stranded. All available rangers are being called to assist with the rescue. What about taking us to Norah Whitefeather? Emma asked, cradling Liam, who seemed unusually quiet, his eyes fixed on Carter as if understanding the conversation. Carter looked torn. "I'm the closest ranger to the ridge. I have to go." He hesitated, then made a decision. "But I can loan you my boat. The map to Norah's cabin is straightforward, and the lake should be calm now." Noah exchanged glances with Emma. The idea of navigating an unfamiliar lake after everything that had happened made him uneasy. But the need to understand what was happening with their son outweighed his concerns. "We'll go," Noah decided, "but I want to leave as soon as possible. If we start now, we can reach her cabin before sunset." Carter nodded, gathering emergency supplies for them. Extra blankets, food, a first aid kit, and a radio. "Stay in contact. Channel 3 connects directly to my handheld unit. And Noah," he handed over a tranquilizer gun, "just in case you encounter any wildlife problems." The implication was clear. If the mother bear became aggressive, they might need protection. Noah accepted the weapon reluctantly, hoping he wouldn't need to use it. Within half an hour, they were back on the water. Carter's boat was larger and sturdier than their rowboat, with a reliable motor that cut smoothly through the lake's surface. Noah steered while Emma sat with Liam in the middle, both wrapped in warm blankets against the cooling afternoon air. As they pulled away from shore, Carter stood watching them, a solitary figure growing smaller with distance. He raised a hand in farewell, then turned and disappeared into the forest, heading toward the north ridge where his duty awaited. The lake was eerily calm after the storm, its surface like glass reflecting the clearing sky above. According to Carter's map, Norah Whitefeather's cabin lay in a secluded cove on the southeastern shore, approximately 5 miles from the ranger station. "How are you doing?" Noah called over his shoulder to Emma. "We're okay," she replied, though the tension in her voice betrayed her anxiety. Liam's being unusually quiet. Noah glanced back at their son, noting how intently the baby stared at the water passing beneath them. Every few minutes, Liam would point at something below the surface, babbling excitedly. "What do you think he sees?" Emma asked, following Liam's gaze, but seeing nothing but the dark water. Noah shook his head. "I don't know, but his vision might be detecting light wavelengths differently than ours." It was a weak scientific explanation, but it was all he could offer. They had been traveling for about 20 minutes when the motor suddenly sputtered and died. Noah pulled frantically at the starter cord, but the engine remained silent. "What's wrong?" Emma asked, clutching Liam tighter. Noah examined the motor. "I don't know. It should be working. Carter said it had a full tank." He tried again without success. "We're going to have to paddle." He located the emergency oars stored beneath the seats and began the laborious process of manually propelling the boat. Their progress slowed considerably, and Noah felt a growing sense of unease. The sun was lower in the sky now, the shadows on the water growing longer. If they didn't reach Norah's cabin before nightfall, navigating the unfamiliar lake would become dangerous. "Noah," Emma's voice was hushed with wonder, "look at the water." All around their stalled boat, the surface of the lake had begun to swirl in those same circular patterns they'd observed earlier. The water seemed to pulse with a faint blue luminescence, growing stronger as the sunlight dimmed. Liam, far from being frightened, leaned toward the strange phenomenon, his hands reaching out eagerly. The blue rattle in his grip began to glow in response, pulsing in rhythm with the light beneath the water. "Emma, keep him in the boat," Noah warned, pulling harder on the oars. But the current was changing, drawing them in a direction different from their intended course. Despite Noah's efforts with the oars, the boat began to move as if guided by an invisible hand. following the swirling patterns in the water. "Noah, I think it's taking us somewhere," Emma said, her voice a mixture of fear and fascination. Before Noah could respond, the boat's speed increased without explanation. They were moving rapidly now, gliding across the water's surface as if propelled by an engine more powerful than the one that had failed them. The lights beneath the surface formed a path ahead of them, guiding them through a narrow channel between two small islands that Noah hadn't noticed on Carter's map. Liam began to babble excitedly, bouncing in Emma's lap and pointing forward as if he knew exactly where they were going. "Should we try to stop?" Emma asked, her arms protective around their son. Noah shook his head, placing the oars back in their holders. "I don't think we can, and maybe we're meant to follow this path." The words felt strange coming from his mouth. He'd always been the practical one, the scientist, the skeptic. But after everything they'd witnessed today, he was beginning to question his understanding of the natural world. The boat continued its mysterious journey, rounding a bend in the lake that revealed a small, hidden cove not marked on any of Carter's maps. Nestled against a backdrop of ancient pines stood a cabin unlike any Noah had seen before. Built partially into the living rock of the shoreline, it seemed to grow from the landscape itself. Smoke curled from a stone chimney, and soft light glowed from windows made of blown glass that caught the setting sun's rays, fracturing them into prismatic patterns. The boat slowed as it approached the shore, coming to a gentle stop on a pebbly beach as if deliberately parked there. The blue lights in the water dimmed and disappeared, leaving only the natural golden hue of sunset reflecting on the lake's surface. On the porch of the cabin stood a woman, straight-backed and still despite her evident age. Her silver hair hung in two long braids over a deerskin tunic decorated with intricate beadwork. She watched their arrival without surprise, as if she had been expecting them all along. "That's her," Noah whispered, recognizing something in the woman's bearing that matched Carter's description. "That must be Norah Whitefeather." Emma nodded, clutching Liam closer as Noah secured the boat and helped them onto shore. The woman made no move to greet them, simply watching with dark, keen eyes that seemed to take in everything: their urban clothing, their nervous expressions, and most intently, the baby in Emma's arms. As they approached the cabin, Norah Whitefeather finally spoke, her voice surprisingly clear and strong for someone who appeared to be well into her 80s. "The lake brought you to me," she stated simply. It wasn't a question. Noah found himself nodding. "Our boat's motor died, and then, yes, I suppose the lake did bring us here." The old woman's gaze shifted to Liam, who had gone utterly silent, staring back at her with unusual intensity. "The child has been chosen," she said, again with absolute certainty. "I have been waiting." "Waiting," Emma repeated. "For us? For Liam?" "For the next bearer," Norah replied cryptically. "It has been many years since the lake chose someone so young." She gestured toward the cabin door. "Come inside." "Night falls quickly here, and there is much to explain." Noah hesitated, his protective instincts flaring. They knew nothing about this woman except what Carter had told them, legends and stories from old journals. Following her into an isolated cabin might not be wise. As if sensing his thoughts, Norah smiled slightly. "Your son was able to connect with a mother bear today to guide her to safety when she was drowning. You witnessed his power awakening. If you want to understand what that means for his future and for yours, you will need my help." Emma gave Noah a significant look. How did this woman know about the bear incident? They hadn't told her anything yet. "We should listen to what she has to say," Emma decided, shifting Liam in her arms. The baby remained unusually calm, his eyes never leaving Norah's face, Noah nodded reluctantly, and they followed the old woman into her cabin. The interior was a fascinating blend of traditional indigenous crafts and modern conveniences. Hand-woven rugs covered the floor, while herbs and dried plants hung from ceiling beams. A central fireplace provided warmth, but Noah also noticed solar-powered lights and what appeared to be a satellite phone on a small desk. Norah gestured for them to sit on cushioned wooden chairs near the fire. "You have questions," she stated simply. "Many questions." "Yes," Noah confirmed, finding his voice. "Our son. He did something today that we can't explain. There was a light, a connection between him and a bear we helped save from drowning. And then the bear followed us, returned his toy." "The beginning of the bond," Norah nodded, settling into her own chair. A rocking chair carved with animal figures that seemed to shift and move in the flickering firelight. "Your son has been chosen by the spirit of Emerald Lake to serve as a bridge." "A bridge to what?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "To the animal world," Norah replied, her weathered hands folding in her lap. "Since time beyond memory, the lake has chosen certain individuals to maintain harmony between humans and the creatures who share these lands. These chosen ones, we call them bearers, can form connections with animals that transcend normal boundaries." Noah shook his head in disbelief. "You're talking about some kind of psychic connection? That's not scientifically possible." Norah's expression remained patient. "Science explains many things, but not all things. The relationship between the bearers and Emerald Lake existed long before your science tried to categorize the world." She rose from her chair and moved to a wooden chest in the corner of the room. From it, she withdrew an object wrapped in soft deerskin. Unwrapping it carefully, she revealed a rattle nearly identical to Liam's blue one, except this was crafted from wood and painted with symbols similar to those Noah had seen in Carter's grandfather's journal. "This was mine when I was a child," Norah explained. "I was chosen when I was 7 years old, older than your son, but still very young. Each bearer receives a token that helps them focus their connection. For your son, it seems to be his rattle." As if recognizing a kindred object, Liam's blue rattle began to glow softly in his hand. Norah's wooden rattle responded in kind, emitting the same bluish light. Emma gasped. "So this has happened before?" "To you?" "And to others before me," Norah confirmed. "My grandmother, a trapper's son in the early 1900s, a young woman who came to the lake to heal from tuberculosis in the 1940s. Carter's grandfather documented some of us in his journals, though he never fully understood what he was witnessing." Noah leaned forward, still skeptical but increasingly intrigued. "What exactly does being chosen mean for Liam? Is he in any danger?" Norah's expression grew serious. "The gift itself is not dangerous, but it comes with responsibility and, yes, sometimes risk. The bearer must learn to control their abilities, to understand the balance of the natural world, and to serve as protector when necessary." "Protector of what?" Emma asked. "Of the lake, of the animals, of the connection between worlds that grows more fragile with each passing generation." Norah looked down at Liam, who stared back at her with those unnaturally focused eyes. "Your son is very young to have been chosen. His powers are manifesting earlier than any bearer I've known. This suggests that a great need is coming, perhaps has already begun." Noah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. "What kind of need?" Norah rose and moved to a window, gazing out at the darkening lake. "For weeks, I have felt a disturbance in the lake's energy, The animals have been restless, behaving strangely. The weather patterns have shifted. Something is threatening the balance, and the lake has responded by selecting a new bearer. She turned back to face them, her expression grave. The fact that your son was chosen so young, and that his first bond was with a bear, one of the most powerful guardian spirits of these forests, suggests that whatever threat is coming may be more serious than anything we've faced before. Emma clutched Liam tighter. You're scaring me, Norah. Are you saying our baby has been chosen to fight some kind of supernatural battle? Norah shook her head. Not alone, never alone. The bearer works with the animals, with the lake itself, and with those who understand the old ways. She returned to her seat, her eyes fixed on Liam. And he will have me to guide him if you allow it. Noah exchanged glances with Emma, seeing his own confusion and concern reflected in her eyes. Their ordinary life had been completely upended in the span of a single day. Their 8-month-old son, whom they had thought would grow up to be a doctor or teacher or whatever he chose, was now being described as some kind of mystical intermediary between humans and animals. This is a lot to process, Noah admitted. How can we be sure this is real and not some elaborate misunderstanding? Norah smiled slightly. The proof is already all around you. How do you explain what happened with the bear today? How do you explain the lake guiding your boat here when your motor failed? How do you explain this? She gestured toward Liam, and Noah and Emma both gasped as they saw what was happening. Their son had extended his hand toward the fire, and small flames were actually rising from the hearth toward his fingers, not burning him, but dancing above his palm like trained creatures responding to a command. "Liam!" Emma cried out in alarm. At his mother's voice, Liam's concentration broke, and the flames retreated to the fireplace. He turned to Emma with a normal baby's smile, as if what he had just done was the most natural thing in the world. Norah nodded approvingly. He has an affinity for elements as well as animals, very unusual in one so young, very powerful. Noah stood up abruptly, pacing the small cabin. Say we believe all this. What happens now? What are we supposed to do with this information? For tonight you will stay here, Norah said decisively. It's too dangerous to cross the lake in darkness. Tomorrow we will begin Liam's first lessons in understanding his gift. Lessons? He's a baby, Emma protested. The younger the bearer begins to understand their abilities, the better they can control them, Norah explained. Without guidance, the power can become erratic, dangerous, especially as he grows older. The implications hung heavy in the air. Their baby boy, their sweet Liam, possessed abilities they couldn't begin to comprehend. And according to this woman they had just met, he needed training to control powers that could potentially become dangerous. Before Noah could formulate another question, a sound from outside caught their attention. A deep, guttural growl that seemed to vibrate through the cabin walls. Norah rose quickly, moving to the window with surprising agility for her age. "She's here," Norah announced, a hint of wonder in her voice. "Who's here?" Noah asked, joining her at the window. In the gathering darkness outside, illuminated only by the rising moon and the soft glow from the cabin windows, stood the mother bear. She had somehow tracked them across the lake to Norah's hidden cove. Behind her, half hidden in the shadows, was her cub. "The first bond has formed completely," Norah whispered. "She has come to protect him." "Protect him from what?" Emma asked, clutching Liam closer. Norah's eyes narrowed as she scanned the darkness beyond the bear. "That," she said quietly, pointing to a disturbance in the water offshore. A strange, swirling pattern that seemed to move against the natural current, creating a dark whirlpool where no whirlpool should exist. "What is that?" Noah asked, squinting to see better in the dim light. "Trouble," Norah replied grimly. "The disturbance I've been sensing for weeks. It's found us sooner than I expected." She turned to face them, her expression deadly serious. "Quickly now. There are things I must teach you before morning. Ways to protect your son until he can protect himself." Outside, the mother bear rose onto her hind legs, facing the mysterious disturbance in the water. She roared a challenge into the night, her massive form silhouetted against the rising moon. Her cub pressed close to her side, small but equally defiant. In Emma's arms, Liam's blue rattle began to glow with an intensity they hadn't seen before, casting strange shadows across the cabin walls. The baby's eyes reflected the same blue light, and for a moment, just a moment, Noah thought he saw something ancient and knowing in his son's gaze, something that transcended the innocent baby they had known until today. "It begins," Norah whispered, watching Liam with a mixture of awe and concern. "Sooner than any of us expected, the next bearer takes his place in a very old story." Outside, the disturbance in the water grew larger, darker, its swirling pattern accelerating as it moved closer to shore. The mother bear stood her ground, a sentinel between the approaching darkness and the cabin where the child who had saved her now needed saving in return. Inside, Norah moved with renewed urgency, gathering herbs, crystals, and what appeared to be ancient scrolls from various shelves and chests. "We have much to do before dawn," she told Noah and Emma. "The lake has chosen your son for a reason, and we must ensure he's ready for what comes next." Noah looked at Emma, at Liam, at the old woman bustling around the cabin, and at the bear standing guard outside. Everything he thought he knew about the world had changed in a single day. Science, logic, reason, none of it explained what was happening. But one thing was clear. Their son was at the center of something extraordinary, something that transcended normal understanding, and whether they fully believed Norah's explanations or not, they had to protect their child from whatever that darkness in the water represented, and perhaps from the very powers awakening within him. Dawn broke over Emerald Lake with an unnatural silence. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Noah stood on Norah's porch, watching the water with weary eyes. They had spent the night learning rituals and protections that, just yesterday, he would have dismissed as superstition. Emma emerged from the cabin, dark circles beneath her eyes betraying her sleepless night. "Liam's finally asleep," she whispered. "Norah's watching him." Noah nodded, drawing her close. "How are you holding up?" Emma leaned against him, her voice barely audible. "I'm terrified, Noah. Everything we thought we knew about our son, about the world, it's all changed so fast." Before Noah could respond, the mother bear, who had maintained her vigilant position throughout the night, suddenly growled, the sound vibrating through the morning stillness. Her cub pressed closer to her side as she rose onto her hind legs, facing the lake. The disturbance they had observed the previous night had grown. What had begun as a small whirlpool was now a vast, churning circle in the center of the cove, the water so dark it appeared almost black. Blue light, the same strange luminescence associated with Liam, formed a boundary around the disturbance, as if fighting to contain it. Norah emerged from the cabin, Liam awake in her arms despite Emma having just put him down. The baby's eyes were fixed on the lake, his expression unnaturally focused. "It's time," Norah announced gravely. "The darkness has been growing beneath Emerald Lake for decades. Pollution, exploitation, the forgetting of the old ways. Now it has manifested physically, and Liam has been chosen to help restore the balance." "He's just a baby," Emma protested. reaching for her son. How can he possibly fight that? Norah gently handed Liam to his mother. Not fight, heal, and not alone. She gestured toward the mother bear, who had approached the cabin steps, her massive form surprisingly unthreatening now. The first bond has been formed. Others will come. As if summoned by her words, movement emerged from the forest surrounding the cove. Animals appeared at the tree line, deer with proud antlers, foxes with brush tails aloft, eagles circling overhead, even the sleek forms of otters and beavers approaching from different points along the shore. They gathered in a loose semicircle, all facing the dark disturbance in the water. "My God," Noah breathed, instinctively drawing closer to Emma and Liam. "What's happening?" "The gathering," Norah explained with reverence. "Not seen in my lifetime. The animals sense the bearer's presence and have come to lend their strength." The darkness in the water surged suddenly, sending waves crashing against the shore. The animals stood their ground, unmoving despite the threatening advance. Liam began to squirm in Emma's arms, his blue rattle glowing brighter than ever before. He pointed insistently toward the lake, babbling urgently. "He needs to complete the ritual we prepared," Norah said. "Emma, you must take him to the water's edge." Emma clutched Liam protectively. "Into danger?" "No!" Noah, torn between his scientific skepticism and the undeniable evidence before his eyes, made a decision. Look around us. This is beyond anything we understand. If Norah says this is how we protect Liam, protect all of us, we need to trust her." After a moment's hesitation, Emma nodded. Together, the family walked down to the shore, the mother bear falling in beside them like an honor guard. Norah followed, carrying a small bundle of herbs and crystals they had prepared during the night. At the water's edge, Emma knelt, still holding Liam. Noah crouched protectively behind them, one hand on his wife's shoulder, the other hovering near his son. "What now?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. Norah knelt beside them, spreading the bundle's contents on the pebbly shore. "Liam must make his choice freely. The bearer must accept their role willingly, even one so young. How can a baby possibly understand what's being asked of him?" Noah demanded. Norah's eyes were kind but firm. "The spirit that chose him will help him understand. Watch." As if on cue, the blue light emanating from Liam's rattle intensified, surrounding the baby in a gentle glow. The mother bear approached, her enormous head level with the child. Instinctively, Noah reached to pull Liam away, but Emma stopped him. "No," she whispered. "Watch." Liam reached out one tiny hand and placed it on the bear's muzzle. The touch sparked a visible connection, that same blue light flowing between child and animal. The bear closed her eyes, a rumbling sound like a purr emanating from her massive chest. Then, one by one, representatives from each animal group approached. A majestic stag, a red fox, a golden eagle that landed just feet away. Each came to Liam, and with each touch the blue light grew stronger, pushing back against the darkness swirling in the lake. "He's choosing," Norah explained softly, "accepting his role as bridge between worlds." The darkness in the water seemed to sense what was happening. It surged again, more violently this time, sending a tendril of murky water snaking up onto the shore toward the gathering. "No!" Noah shouted, lunging forward to shield his family. But before the darkness could reach them, the mother bear roared a challenge, stepping between the threat and the humans. Every animal present joined the chorus, deer stamping, foxes barking, eagles screeching, a unified voice of nature rising in defiance. Liam lifted his rattle high, the blue light now so intense it was almost blinding. For a moment, just a heartbeat, Noah saw something else superimposed over his son's infant features. A vision of the man he might become, strong and wise, a guardian of balance between worlds. The light shot from Liam's rattle into the heart of the darkness, a beam of pure energy that cut through the murky water. Where it touched, the darkness dissipated, returning to normal, healthy lake water. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted only minutes. The blue light spread from the central point of contact, rippling outward across the entire lake. Where it passed, the water cleared, regaining its emerald clarity. Fish jumped as if celebrating their liberation. Plants beneath the surface stood taller, healthier. When it was over, Liam's rattle dimmed to a soft glow. The baby slumped in Emma's arms, exhausted but smiling. The gathered animals, their part in the ritual complete, began to disperse, returning to the forest with dignified purpose. Only the mother bear and her cub remained, watching Liam with unmistakable intelligence in their eyes. Norah smiled, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "It is done. The darkness has been driven back, for now." "For now?" Noah questioned, cradling Emma and Liam in his arms. "You mean it will return?" "Balance is never permanent," Norah explained, gathering the ritual items. "It requires constant tending, constant vigilance. That is the bearer's lifelong duty. But your son has many years to grow into his full power and many teachers to guide him." She nodded toward the bear. "Some with fur, some with feathers, some with human wisdom." Emma looked down at Liam, now sleeping peacefully in her arms. An ordinary baby again, except for the faintly glowing rattle still clutched in his tiny fist. "What happens now?" she asked softly. "How do we raise a child with this responsibility?" Norah gathered her ritual items, smiling gently. "With love, as you already do. With openness to wonder, which you're learning. And with the knowledge that you're never alone in this journey." She gestured toward the retreating forms of the animals, and then toward the lake itself, once again serene and beautiful in the morning light. "Liam is the bridge, but you are his foundation. Your love, your guidance, your willingness to see beyond the boundaries of what you thought possible. These will be his greatest strengths." Noah looked out across the healed lake, his scientist's mind still struggling to categorize what he had witnessed. But beneath the confusion was a growing sense of acceptance and wonder. "We should head back soon," he said finally. "Carter will be worried about us." "Yes," Norah agreed, "but you will return. The bearer must continue his training, when he's old enough to understand more fully. Until then." She handed Noah a small wooden carving of a bear. "Place this above his crib. It will help maintain the bond while he grows." As they prepared to leave, gathering their few belongings and Carter's borrowed boat, the mother bear approached one final time. With gentle deliberation, she nudged her cub forward. The small bear toddled up to Emma, who instinctively tensed, clutching Liam tighter. The bear cub simply sat before them, looking up with intelligent eyes that seemed far too knowing for an animal so young. Then it lifted one paw and touched the wooden boat's side, leaving a muddy print. A mark, a blessing, a promise. "A guardian," Norah explained, smiling. "This cub's life is now linked to Liam's through the bond. As they both grow, the connection will strengthen. Where one goes, the other will know. What one feels, the other will sense." "You mean this bear will follow us home?" Noah asked incredulously. Norah chuckled. "No, not physically. Bears belong in forests, humans in their homes, but the connection transcends physical distance. In times of need, they will find each other." The mother bear nudged her cub, and together they turned, lumbering back toward the forest. At the edge of the trees, the massive animal paused, looking back one final time. In that moment, her eyes met Noah's, and he felt a solemn understanding pass between them. A shared commitment to protect the child who had formed a bridge between their worlds. 1 year later, Noah stood on the deck of their new home, watching the sunset over Emerald Lake. After everything that had happened that fateful day, returning to their former life in the city had proven impossible. How could they raise a child with Liam's special connection to nature in a concrete apartment 20 stories above the ground? The decision to relocate had come easier than expected. Noah had applied for and received a position with the local Wildlife Conservation Office, working alongside Carter, who had become both colleague and confidant. Emma had established a small but successful photography business, documenting the natural wonders of the area, though she was careful never to photograph certain locations or events that Norah deemed sacred. Inside the cabin, he could hear Emma singing softly to Liam, now a toddling 20-month-old whose vocabulary consisted primarily of animal sounds, and whose favorite activity was sitting by the lake, watching the water with unusual patience for a child so young. Every few weeks, they visited Norah at her hidden cove, where Liam received what the old woman called lessons in listening. Simple exercises designed to help the young bearer develop control over his emerging abilities. Already, he could calm agitated animals with a touch, sense approaching storms before the weather service issued alerts, and communicate his desires through a combination of rudimentary speech and the strange blue light that occasionally emanated from his hands when he was particularly focused. Noah had documented everything in his own journal, a scientific record of phenomena that defied scientific explanation. Sometimes, late at night, he still struggled with the implications of it all, what it meant for their understanding of the natural world, for Liam's future, for the boundaries between what was known and what was merely undiscovered. A rustle in the underbrush drew Noah's attention. At the edge of their yard, where cultivated garden gave way to wild forest, a familiar form emerged. The mother bear, larger and more magnificent than ever, her coat gleaming in the fading sunlight. Beside her, nearly half her size now, walked her cub, growing stronger by the day. Noah nodded in greeting, no longer afraid. These visits had become routine, occurring every few weeks as the bears made their rounds of the territory that included the Matthews' new home. "Emma," he called softly through the open door. "They're here." Emma appeared with Liam in her arms. The toddler immediately began squirming excitedly, reaching toward the bears with gleeful recognition. Following the careful protocol Norah had established, Emma carried Liam to the bottom of the deck stairs and set him down. The toddler stood on wobbly legs, waiting as the mother bear approached slowly, her cub half hidden behind her massive form. When they were about 10 feet apart, Liam raised his hand. The blue rattle, now attached to a cord around his wrist to prevent it from being lost, glowing softly in the gathering dusk. The mother bear sat on her haunches, a posture of peaceful greeting, the space between child and bear illuminated with that now familiar blue light, a visible manifestation of the bond that connected them. No words were exchanged, none were needed. The connection existed on a level beyond language, beyond even conscious thought, a harmony of spirits that transcended the barriers between species. After several minutes, the light faded. The mother bear rose, nudging her cub forward for its own brief communion with Liam. The young bears touched noses briefly, a gesture that always made Emma gasp and Noah hold his breath despite the many times they had witnessed it, before retreating to their mother's side. With a final rumbling sound that might have been a farewell, the bears turned and disappeared back into the forest, their visit complete. Noah joined Emma and Liam at the bottom of the stairs, lifting his son into his arms. "Good job, buddy," he murmured, kissing the top of Liam's head. "You're getting better at controlling the light." Emma leaned against her husband's side, her expression thoughtful. "Do you ever wonder if we made the right choice? Moving here, accepting all of this?" She gestured vaguely toward the forest where the bears had vanished. Noah considered the question carefully. Their lives had been transformed in ways they could never have imagined. That morning they took their boat onto Emerald Lake for a simple family outing. Everything they had planned for their son, for themselves, had been altered by the revelation of Liam's special connection to the natural world. "I think," he said slowly, "that we didn't really have a choice. Or rather, the only choice was whether to accept what Liam is or to deny it, and denying it would have only hurt him." Emma nodded, watching as Liam's attention turned to a butterfly that had landed on Noah's shoulder. The insect seemingly unafraid of human proximity when near the young bearer. "Besides," Noah continued, a smile warming his features, "how many parents get to raise a child who can talk to bears? Who might grow up to heal the broken places between humans and nature? Who sees magic in the world that most of us have forgotten how to see?" The butterfly fluttered from Noah's shoulder to land on Liam's outstretched finger. The toddler giggled with delight, his laughter pure and infectious. For that moment, he was simply a happy child, marveling at the wonder of a butterfly's wings, the extraordinary gift he carried temporarily forgotten in the simple joy of discovery. And perhaps that, Noah reflected, was the greatest wisdom he had learned from all of this, that the extraordinary existed alongside the ordinary, the magical within the mundane. Liam would grow up straddling two worlds, the human world of school and friends and everyday concerns, and the deeper, older world of animal bonds and natural forces and ancient responsibilities. Their job as parents was not to choose one world over the other for him, but to help him find balance between them, to teach him to embrace his unique gifts without being defined solely by them, to ensure that the bearer of such profound responsibility would also know the simple pleasures of being a child, a son, a human being connected to other human beings through love. As darkness settled over Emerald Lake, the first stars appearing in the deepening blue of the sky, Noah carried his son back toward their home. Emma walked beside them, her camera capturing the final rays of sunlight glistening on the water. In the distance, a wolf howled, a lonely, haunting sound that echoed across the lake. Liam turned his head toward it, listening with that strange intentness that still occasionally startled his parents. After a moment, he smiled and pointed. "Friend," he said simply, one of the few human words he had mastered. Noah and Emma exchanged glances over their son's head, a silent communication born of shared experiences that defied explanation. "Yes, buddy," Noah agreed softly. "Friend." As they crossed the threshold into their warm, light-filled home, Noah felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. Their lives had taken an unexpected turn that day on the lake, when their baby son had thrown his rattle to save a drowning mother bear. What had seemed at first like a random act, a coincidence, a strange alignment of circumstances, had revealed itself as the first thread in a tapestry far larger and more beautiful than they could have imagined. Outside, the faint blue glow of Emerald Lake reflected the starlight above, a reminder of the mysteries it held beneath its surface and the ancient wisdom it had entrusted to the smallest among them. Inside, a family prepared for dinner, for bedtime stories, for the sweet, ordinary rituals that anchored their days amid the extraordinary journey they had begun together. And somewhere in the forest, a mother bear and her growing cub settled into their den, their dreams intertwined with those of a human child whose heart had recognized their kinship beyond a